Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and there's a new Lancet study that came out regarding the vaccines, which was quickly removed, of course, because it went against the official narrative that everyone should go get injected and die. This out of the Daily Skeptic. It says Lancet study on COVID vaccine autopsies finds 74% were caused by vaccine. Journal removes study within 24 hours. So what they're saying is that of all these autopsies that were injected before death, 74% of them died from the injection. And of course, the Lancet is a pretty well-known mainstream rag, but it's interesting because, sometimes the truth slips out. And in this case, it didn't last long. And, this comes at the same time as we see things like this. Finally, major lawsuit against Pfizer accusing fraud in COVID-19 vaccine. Well, it actually, I shouldn't say finally, or shouldn't say finally, because there was actually a lawsuit a while ago that where they cut out all appeals, and Albert Bourla had to pay a big sum of money for fraudulent claims around the injection. But there is another one now pending, as we see huge amounts of Pfizer documents come out. This out of conservativeplaybook.com. It says, damning audit shows New York paid up to $14,050 for injecting just one COVID vaccine. The level of bribery involved in this, the level of corruption is just unprecedented. And, this is something that people will have to come to terms with eventually and find justice for, because we now know that these injections, and we were obviously here at World Alternative Media, we were warning about it long before they came out, but nonetheless, people are now waking up to the fact that these are mass murder weapons. They are genocidal weapons. So we're going to go into this study out of the Lancet right away, my friends. But before we do, I urge people to check those links below. Check out rncstore.com, Richardson Nutritional Center, your source for Laetrile online, made famous by G. Edward Griffin's book, World Without Cancer. Get your apricot seeds, Laetrile, amygdalin, and vitamin B17 there. And do it before they get banned. Make sure to keep stocking up on this stuff. It could easily have a shelf life of about 10 years. So just go and stock up on this stuff today. Also, check out heavensharvest.com for long-term storable foods that are non-GMO. That we have organic kits, heirloom seeds, water filtration and storage, and books on how to get started. Use code WAM, W-A-M, and you get free shipping on much of these products. And even if you don't qualify for free shipping, I still urge you to use code WAM. Again, this could save your life against the coming climate lockdowns, which they'll use the COVID lockdowns as a litmus for. My friends, this could save your family's life. And of course, versus inflation, you are already saving money on this stuff. So again, think of later on when they control collapse the supply chain and you cannot get food off the shelves. What are you going to do then? What are you going to do when they shut down bank accounts so you cannot access food? What are you going to do when they have mRNA in the food, which are already finding traces up in a lot of food? Get on this today. We recently did an interview with the CEO of Heaven's Harvest, which you could find on our channel as well. Anyway, that's code WAM, W-A-M. Let's get into this. The Daily Skeptic. It says Lancet study on COVID vaccine autopsies finds 74% were caused by vaccine. Journal removes study within 24 hours. And we have a lot more that we're going to get into later in this video where they're going next with this. But let's get into the article itself. It says the Lancet review of 325 autopsies after COVID vaccination found that 74% of the deaths were caused by the vaccine, but the journal removed the study within 24 hours. I do want to point out that of the people that they claim didn't die from the vaccine, we have to remember a bunch of different factors here. We know that once people are injected, that it brings their premorbidities to the front. So a lot of the cases, they will not be able to examine exactly what the extent of the injections was. So that's important to point out. They know that these specific things definitely killed people. Like the vaccine killed people in these cases, but there's a whole bunch of other examples, I'm sure, that are there in that 26 percentile rate, which will show that those people would have died later from the same thing, but it brought it to the front of the line. But 74% is still a massive number, my friends. As it continues here, it says, The study, a preprint that was awaiting peer review, is written by leading cardiologist Dr. Peter McCulloch, Yale epidemiologist Dr. Harvey Risch, and their colleagues at the wellness company, and was published online on Wednesday on the preprint site of the prestigious medical journal. However, less than 24 hours later, the study was removed and a note appeared stating this preprint has been removed by preprints with the Lancet because the study's conclusions are not supported by the study methodology. While the study had not undergone any part of the peer review process, the note implies it fell foul of screening criteria. The original study abstract can be found in the Internet Archive. It reads, with emphasis added, background: the rapid development and widespread deployment of COVID-19 vaccines, combined with a high number of adverse event reports, have led to concerns over possible mechanisms of injury, including systemic lipid nanoparticles, LNP, and mRNA distribution, spike protein-associated tissue damage, thrombogenicity, immune system dysfunction, and carcinogenicity. The aim of this systematic review is to investigate possible causal links between COVID-19 vaccine administration and death using autopsies and post-mortem analysis. Methods: we searched for all published autopsy and necropsy reports relating to COVID-19 vaccination up until May 18th, 2023. We initially identified 678 studies, and after screening for our inclusion criteria, including 44 papers that contained 325 autopsy cases and one necropsy case, 3 physicians independently reviewed all deaths and determined whether COVID-19 vaccination was the direct cause or contributed significantly to death. Sounds fair enough to me. It says findings. The most implicated organ system in COVID-19 vaccine-associated death was the cardiovascular system, 53%, followed by the hematological system, 17%, the respiratory system, 8%, and multiple organ system, 7%. 3 or more organ systems were affected in 21 cases. The mean time from vaccination to death was 14.3 days. Most deaths occurred within a week from last vaccine administration. A total of 240 deaths, 73.9%, were independently adjudicated as directly due to or significantly contributed to by COVID-19 vaccination. Interpretation: the consistency seen among cases in this review with known COVID-19 vaccine adverse events, their mechanisms and related death, excess death, coupled with autopsy confirmation and physician-led death adjudicated, suggests there's a high likelihood of a causal link between COVID-19 vaccines and death in most cases. Further urgent investigation is required for the purpose of clarifying our findings, which all of that seems completely fair. It's pre-peer review. By the way, it's really hard to find people who will peer review these things, by the way, because they could lose their jobs. But it seems fair to me. But of course, they say, oh, well, there wasn't enough information for the methodology. Well, they gave a good amount of information in the initial study. And I want to point out that I recently did a video. Well, I've done lots of videos on this lately, but they showed vaccines cause sudden death in peer-reviewed papers. And they've also shown that babies now have myocarditis in several peer-reviewed papers. And in the main peer-reviewed paper, by the way, that I mentioned here, well, there's one out of Japan and one out of Qatar. It showed that just a massive increase in death was due to the vaccines, and it was causing sudden death. But they were only studying the first 14 to 15 days. Now, here's the problem with that. In studies out of Australia, we've seen that people who were injected, say in 2021, were dying at a huge rate. But in 2022, they're dying at a larger rate, even though they weren't getting more injections. And now in 2023, thus far, we're seeing a massively increased rate for this year as well. And it won't be until the end of the year that we'll fully get the picture, probably not until even February or March of 2024 that we'll get a full picture of 2023. But the point is, it causes more deaths as time goes by. So the 14 or 15 days after injection rate is only scratching the surface. Just like we see these babies with myocarditis now, which the WHO is warning about, expand outward. You have to expand outward. That's the only realistic way to do this, because yes, they're showing that these children are getting myocarditis, newborns, toddlers, etc. Ones that weren't injected, but their parents were injected. But this is a multi-generation thing. Expand, and I hate to say this because I don't want to be that guy, but it's true. Expand out. Their illnesses are only just beginning. By the time they're 8 or 9 or 10, it's going to be getting a lot worse, and we're going to see a huge rate of unfortunate deaths and injuries and severe injuries among those kids. And then by 20, a massive level of injury. And with mRNA, who knows how long they could honestly last. The the studies out of Australia showing about 5,033%, no, 5,133%, I believe, increase in excess deaths since week 21 of 2021, which was a week that the emergency authorization was made, because before that, there was actually a minus number of deaths. But 5,133 or 122%, I can't exactly remember which one, increase in excess deaths in Australia. It showed that at the rate that is growing year over year, 2021 to 2022 to 2023, that 30-year-olds, for example, that got 4 or 5 injections will be expected to lose 25% of their lifespan. So zoom out again. I mean, if the average lifespan of a man is 78, we're talking someone that's going to be dying in their 50s, or even, all the way down to their 40s after this injection. So we are just beginning to see the effect, but I'm going to digress and go back into the study here. It says, without further detail from the Lancet staff who removed the paper, it is hard to know what the substance of the claim that the conclusions are not supported by the methodology really has. A number of the authors of the paper are at the top of their field, so it is hard to imagine that their methodology of their review was really so poor that it warranted removal at initial screening rather than being subject to full critical appraisal. It smacks instead of raw censorship of a paper that failed to toe the official line. Keep in mind that the CDC has not yet acknowledged a single death being caused by the COVID vaccines. Autopsy evidence demonstrating otherwise is clearly not what the U.S. public health establishment wants to hear. Dr. Claire Gregg, a pathologist and co-chair of the Heart Pandemic Advisory Group, says that in her view, the approach taken in the study is sound, she told the Daily Skeptic. The VAX system of vaccine adverse event reporting is designed to alert to potential harms without necessarily being the best way of measuring the extent of those harms. Well, no, because I mean, only 1 to at the most 10% are actually labeled with VAERS anyway. It says quantifying the impact of deaths can be done by looking at overall mortality rates in a country. However, this is imperfect, as a deficit of deaths would be expected after a period of excess deaths, making the accuracy of any baseline dubious. An alternative approach of auditing such deaths through autopsy is sound. There may be a bias in the study towards reporting the autopsies of deaths where there was evidence of causation, and the likelihood of causation might be exaggerated by that bias. For example, 19 of the 325 deaths were due to vaccine-induced immune thrombocytopenia and thrombosis, but these reports may be overrepresented because of the regulators' willingness to acknowledge such deaths. Nevertheless, it is important that attempts are made to quantify the risk of harm, and censorship of these attempts rather than open scientific critique does not help to reassure people. Well, we've seen that with the RFK situation recently, haven't we? Dr. Harvey Risch, one of the study's authors, told the Daily Skeptic he deems it pure government-directed censorship even after the Missouri versus Biden injunction. Meanwhile, my colleagues are studying what they call long VAX, which is vaccine-caused damage, but of course that is a rare outcome, except that they seem not to be having any problem finding such individuals to enroll in the study, he said. Yeah, they're finally admitting that so-called long COVID is actually just illness from the injections. A lot of major institutes are acknowledging that now. But remember, COVID-19 has never been isolated from a single human being ever. It's only been cultured in Vera monkey kidney cells and compared to a computer simulation. It's not real. It's not real. And we see the amount of bribery over the last little while. We've seen it to the media. We've seen it with governments funding people, censoring people, etc. And now we see damning audit shows New York paid up to $14,050 for injecting one COVID-19 vaccine on top of giving everyone free French fries. I mean, truly deranged, truly insane. And everyone's poor. And they say, oh, well, you know what? We are here to save you. We are here to help you. So get this injection. The hospital gets a huge grant. Gee, I wonder why these medical institutes were begging people to get shots, other than the fact that they're paid for by eugenicists. This out of Breitbart says nudge unit chief says UK will obey future lockdown. Citizens have learned the behavior. Yes, this is an actual statement. And this nudge unit we've talked about is both of COVID-19 and the propaganda that they put into the media back in 2020. We've gone over the studies before, or the leaks before, where they showed that they had a secret government nudge unit in 2020 to fabricate the extent of so-called COVID and scare people into compliance with misinformation in order to tell people that the truth was misinformation. It's an Orwellian tactic. And now there's another nudge unit by the UK government where Professor Suzanne Michie, who was involved in the original nudge unit and propagating COVID, is now involved in climate lockdowns and getting people to accept carbon credits on their bank accounts. So what we're witnessing is, just to repeat again, and they say, you know, the public will accept future lockdowns and they'll obey them because they've learned the behavior. Well, they're already doing that in a way with the 15-minute cities, which, by the way, I'm doing a documentary on. I was just in Oxford for weeks and weeks on end reporting on this, and all over England getting interviews with amazing people. You can help donate to our gogetfunding.com campaign for that because it costs us $10,000. I went into debt. I'm extremely broke right now, so anything is very appreciated. But anyway, that's in the description. I appreciate those that have already, but this is part of the goal. They start with the COVID injections. They start with the COVID passports, the vaccine passports, and they move into a new form of lockdown with another invisible enemy, the weather. And of course, we have this out of Reclaim the Net, how the WHO plans to increase its powers, restrict individual liberties, curb disinformation. Well, there's so many ways they're doing that. They have this new digital ID that they announced at the United Nations, which will be connected to your bank account. We have Fed Now in the United States, which is being launched on July 18th, which will be attached to your bank accounts, your PayPal, your Zelle, Cash App, etc., which will determine, you know, what can go through based on social behavior via the Federal Reserve's decision. I'm screwed on this one. I've been speaking out about the Fed since 2006. And they just came out with declarations on July 1st, which we talked about in our interview with Dr. Kirk Elliott, which I urge you to see if you haven't yet, where they are talking about closing down thousands of banks, and they are getting ready to shut down your bank account so you cannot access your money in the case of even just one bank run. Now, they have the BRICS summit in August, and the IMF is calling for a global digital currency. BRICS is calling for a global digital currency. And all of that will be attached to health passports, carbon credits, social credits, and with the social situation where the social construct with the Fed now, that's literally social credit. And now we have these carbon credits, and these 15-minute cities are building all over the world in hundreds of cities. Bans on flights, all that kind of stuff. And they're using the COVID situation to do that. The zero COVID policy in China is now the zero carbon policy worldwide. And they also have the pandemic treaties. They also have the push for new lockdowns where they say now under certain international laws, which aren't really laws, it's all bullshit, but they say that if you are unvaccinated, you are considered a disease vector now, and you can be forcefully quarantined across a board where, the United Nations just announced that they are planning to have full control over all global governments, all governments worldwide, to lock them down at will. We reported on that yesterday, and I urge you to check that video out too, because it is mind-blowing what they're doing. But all these things are coming together at the same time as they destroy the food supply. They put mRNA in the food supply. They destroy the energy grid. They destroy the housing market so you don't own property. They destroy the economy first by propping up inflation, weakening the public, and then they're all poor, and then they force people into bread lines to get food rations with mRNA in it, and then with based on carbon credits attached to your CBDC, which is attached to the new BRICS World Reserve currency system. where you're censored and silenced at any point in time where you want to speak for yourself. And then on top of that, all these things, you end up with the BRICS world reserve currency system to replace the destroyed currency, which they destroyed on purpose to bring us into the new technocratic system of governance, the Great Reset, if you will. What Klaus Schwab says is a role model for the Great Reset is China. And now we have most of the countries in the world, the major countries, 6.6 billion population of the world in all these countries trying to join BRICS. It's already done. But with these pandemic treaties and all these things adding up with the demoralization of children, trans kids, the push for World War III, which is all falsified, it's all fake, push for an alien invasion, which is one of the things the United Nations said is one of their reasons for lockdown. Health emergencies, climate emergencies, economic emergencies, alien invasion. Seriously, they say that. There's so much fakery happening right now, and we are on the verge of one of the most historic times in history. And I mentioned in my previous video, July is when most of this stuff is being rolled out. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen in July. It means that they build up the infrastructure in July. They already did July 1st. They're doing it July 18th. And then in August, they have the BRICS summit. It's happening now. This is a very significant time. Janet Yellen just went to China to meet with the Chinese government. And, she was a Treasury Secretary. She was the head of the Fed before. And she just said that the US dollar is probably going to lose its reserve status in the next coming years, slowly but surely. This isn't a conspiracy theory. People keep thinking of it as, oh, sky's falling, Chicken Little. They're literally saying what they are doing, my friends, right before our eyes. And we have precious little time to prepare. Now, that little time could be a month, which I'm sure it's more than a month, but I think you should do it. Better to be overly prepared than underprepared. It could be 5 months. It could be a year. It could be 3 years. I can't see it more than 3 years. It's impossible to me. All the same, in the next 3 years, you're going to go to war with food. They're going to push inflation. They're putting mRNA in food. They're destroying the power grid. They are planning for something really big, which is one of the reasons I'm not really keen to be on airplanes these days, because I don't like the idea of an EMP attack on, while being on an airplane. I am really getting to the point where I'm just going to be buckling down on farmland in Arizona. There's a great community here in Puerto Vallarta where I am right now. I'm at my home, but I don't know how much longer I might be staying here, because there is an opportunity in Arizona with farmland and chickens and, all the defenses necessary outside of a big city that might just be a better deal for me. And at that point, there won't be more videos coming out in the future when they shut all these things down. I won't be able to bring you guys content. And those are the times where I'm really concerned about people that don't prepare for what's happening now. They're mass murdering people with injections. They're destroying the food supply, the energy grid, the housing market, the economy. They're demoralizing people. They're demoralizing children. They're desensitizing people. They're normalizing lockdown. They're normalizing tyranny. They're trying to create transhumanism. They're trying to push AI to replace humanity. They're building a Tower of Babel. And then people are still saying, yeah, but, it'll be fine. That's a really big gamble in the most insane time in human history to make. There have been resets before, my friends. Do you know anything about the civilizations that lived before those resets? I'm not talking about the fall of the Roman Empire. I'm talking about ancient civilizations, and I've done many documentaries on them. Do you know what's happened to them? No, we barely have any information on them. And it's been completely covered up, literally, by Earth. Göbekli Tepe is a good example. Karahan Tepe, which I did another documentary on that as well. We don't know about those civilizations because it was back in the last ice age. They were technologically advanced in some way, maybe not in the same way as we are, but they were. And there is some kind of massive reset, and they're wiped from the face of the earth. And now when you try to research them, the same establishment characters that are trying to bring in the new Great Reset cover up most of the information regarding them and hide it in the Smithsonian, hide it at the Temple Mount in Israel, hide it in Egypt, hide it at the Vatican. It is imperative that we understand this has happened before and it's happening now, and it's the craziest thing that's happened in 10,000 plus years. People think that's woo-woo. Well, do your research on it, my friends. I've spent many years doing it. That's why I'm so tense about this when people aren't listening to the obvious. You cannot depend on conveniences. You cannot depend on grocery stores. You cannot depend on the healthcare system, especially because it's unhealth. You cannot depend on these systems. You need to be your own system of governance. You need to separate. You need to withdraw. You need to build your own, grow your own, not be in the banking system, not depend on the government for power, or else succumb to the reset and become one of the slaves, one of the zombies, glossy-eyed and all, walking with your arms in front of you, doing whatever you're told. Because if you don't, you'll starve to death, and so will your family. I don't like to fearmonger, but this is going to happen. And that's why I want to present solutions to everyone. And people think it's crazy. They're like, oh, stop telling them you're a shill, you're a grifter, whatever they want to call me. But they're actual solutions. So anyway, I know a lot of you have already, actually done something to prepare. I know a lot of you are not fully prepared, and I know a lot of you have not prepared at all. So I urge you, my friends, as always, we have options. We have heavensharvest.com for long-term storable foods that are non-GMO. We have organic kits, heirloom seeds, water filtration and storage, books on how to get started. Use code WAM, W-A-M, and you get free shipping on much of these products in the US. And even if you don't qualify, I still urge you to use code WAM. It helps keep you alive and us alive at the same time. It'll save your family. Give a man a fish and he feeds himself tonight. Teach a man to fish and he feeds himself for a lifetime. Those heirloom seeds could feed you for a lifetime. And intermittently using the storable foods and then bouncing back and forth will save you and allow you to get around the Tower of Babel before it falls. Then from the ashes of it, build a bright, new, beautiful civilization in the aftermath. Good will overcome evil eventually. There's also KirkElliottPhD.com/wham, where you could buy gold and silver physically today. You can roll over into gold IRAs, 401k, 403b, checking, savings, brokerage accounts. And, you get a bunch of free special reports. Kirk Elliott is the author of 11 books, a double PhD. He's been on our show twice in the last week. I urge you to check out those videos. A very intelligent guy. And, all you have to do is go to that sign-up sheet and schedule a call with him. So there's a way to withdraw from the banking system as much as you can. I also, recommend things, and it's just my opinion, not investment advice, but I also recommend things like Epic Cash, the privacy coin based on the Mimblewimble protocol, which, by the way, is now integrated on Brighteon, which I'm really excited about. So check that out. But anyway, and you can find out more about them on Epic Cash Community on Telegram. I'm not paid by them. I just support what they do. Also, you could go and check out, for obvious reasons with the power grid, Lion Energy linked in the description. So you could get batteries, solar panels, solar chargers, generators, etc. There's also things like RNCstore.com, Richardson Nutritional Center, your source for Laetrile online, made famous by G. Edward Griffin's book, World Without Cancer. Get your apricot seeds, Laetrile, amygdalin, and vitamin B17 there. That could save your life. That's a huge one. That can keep you safe from the chemicals they're spraying in the sky, the cancerous, epidemic that we're seeing across the board, and the so-called turbo cancer. Prepare yourself and stock up today. And of course, finally, we do have a link for Iconic, where you can get an extended 10-day free trial if you go through us. I highly recommend Iconic Network. We just interviewed David Icke. We interviewed Gareth Icke. We have interviews coming up with all the Ickes and many other people that are going to be in our upcoming 15-minute city documentary, which I urge you to also help us support, because it costs a lot of money in licensing, music, and clips. And on top of that, we already spent over $10,000 traveling around, getting sabotaged left and right, trying to build up this documentary. We got about $3,600 back so far, and we truly, truly appreciate those who've donated so far. You guys are amazing. We need more to continue this documentary. We still have more interviews to do, and we have to do the licensing, and it costs a fortune. I've lost everything. I have absolutely no money left. So anything is appreciated. This is how independent media works. It's not big conglomerates funding us. We have to be, viewer funded. It's the way it is. So I appreciate any help we can get. So there's gogetfunding.com, Patreon, Subscribestar. We have a Bitcoin address, and we have a Cointree link with a bunch of different cryptocurrencies that you can donate in if you please, including privacy coins. We have an Epic Fund Me campaign where you can donate an Epic Cash, a privacy coin based on the Mimblewimble protocol. And of course, we have a Teespring store. You can find our newsletter, www.iamband.com, in the description, and you sign up with your email. It takes 2 seconds. We're on Telegram, Rockfin, Band.video, BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble, and Brighteon at World Alternative Media. We're on Hive, Steemit, and Vigilante.tv at Josh Sigurdsson. And we're on the Bad Guys, TikTok and Instagram, World Alternative Media, Twitter and Getter at World Alt Media. And of course, we are on, we're banned from Spotify, but we're on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all those still for the time being anyway. So follow us on there. Anyway, hit that like button, share on social media, hit the notification bell, and hit subscribe if you have not yet already, my friends. And until next time, I appreciate everyone watching. Live by example, live freely always. This is Josh Sigurdsson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm looking for partners, collaborators, colleagues who want to join forces with me around the globe and create real value, generational wealth, and financial freedom for everyone else around the world. Get involved in the cryptocurrency markets, get involved in the NFT markets. This is your moment. Life all comes down to a few moments. Don't let this pass. Now it's not too late. Next year's going to be too late. Ultimately, this is about freedom. That's the way I see it. This is about giving power back to the people and enabling billions of people worldwide to use the financial markets to improve their lives and those of their friends and their families and their communities. Honestly, I think it's a violation of human rights not to allow people basic access to financial services. Because right now, people are being kept in the dark, they're being robbed of education, and it's a travesty. And so I'm looking for people that want to join me and be a part of this solution. And that all happens inside the DeFi Academy. The gains my students are making are absolutely amazing. Double, triple-digit gains in the first month alone. That's amazing. This will change your life. Now is the time to get involved. I'm going to tell you exactly how my students in my academy made money in the last 30 days. I'm talking about real trading results. And let me just whet your appetite a little bit. Let me hit you with some numbers. I'm talking Brendan from New Zealand is up 68.77% on the month. Steve from Europe up 83%. Albert in Singapore up 169.9% on one single trade. I got Susan up 153% on her call options alone, also rocking 139% returns and 442% returns as well on individual trades. These are people that are changing their financial future in the last 30 days, but it's based on trading discipline.
I've graduated over 500 students from inside my academy from over 54 countries around the world. It's amazing. When it comes to crypto, DeFi, and blockchain, we love this space. We truly believe it's the future. This is down to our core. It's authentic to what we're doing, and everybody can tell through the camera because you can't make this stuff up.
If you're watching me now, wherever you are, I implore you, take 60 seconds right now and join my academy. Apply today. Now you've got a chance. Life all comes down to a few moments. What are you going to do? What's the choice that you're going to make?